Welcome back to Linux Launch, learning basic Linux with the C Model framework. We're currently in the first module, Command Line Basics, and we're working through the acronym COMMAND. Today we're on letter A. The letter A stands for absolute versus relative paths. This lesson builds naturally on the last one, where we talked about mobility, specifically how to use the cd command to move around the Linux file structure. When we talk about a path, we're just talking about the route that you take to get to a location in the system. For example, if we want to go to the downloads folder for our user, we might run cd/home/sysvin/downloads. That sysvin is my user, yours will be different. The whole string /home/sysvin/downloads is the path. Now what's the difference between an absolute and a relative path? Let's start with a helpful illustration to make this easier to understand. If I want to tell someone how to get to my house, what do I tell them? I can give them the full address, like I'm in the United States, in the state of Arkansas, in the city of Little Rock, on a certain street with a specific house number. It doesn't matter whether you're coming from Canada or Guatemala, that address will work. It's absolute. But if someone lives nearby, I might just say, hey, pull out of your driveway, take a right, go to the stop sign and turn left, then go through 2 intersections and turn right on a certain street, and my house will be on the left. Those directions would only make sense from their location. It would not work from just any place. That's what we mean by a relative path. That's the core idea. Absolute paths work from anywhere. Relative paths depend on where you already are. So hopefully that's a helpful illustration. Now let me give you some concrete examples in Linux. Let's go back to our example of cd/home/sysvin/downloads. That's an absolute path. It starts at the top from the root or slash, and it gives the full path down to where we want to go. And notice when we run pwd that it got us there. But let's say we're already in the home directory, that is /home. So let's go back there with cd ... Now let's run pwd and you can see that we're now here. Now if we want to go to downloads, that absolute path would still work, but it's not necessary. We could just do cd sysvin/downloads. That's a relative path from where we are. It's based on where we are right now. It will not work from just anywhere. If we were in the var directory, for instance, that path wouldn't work to get me to my users and my downloads. Let's try that now. Go to cd/var, and now from here let's run cd sysvin/downloads, and it fails because a relative path will not work from just anywhere. Let me give another example. Let's go back to downloads using the absolute path, cd/home/sysvin/downloads. Say we want to go to the document folder. Sure, we could do the absolute path, cd/home/sysvin/documents. That would get us there, but we could also do a relative path. Since documents is at the same level as downloads, that is, they're in the same directory, we can't just do cd documents. The documents directory is not in our downloads. So what we can do is back up. Remember how we put it in reverse? So that would be cd ... and if we pressed enter right now, it would put us back into our home directory. But in the same move, we can also go forward into documents. So let's do that all in one fluid motion. cd ... /documents. Now let's press enter. Now if we do pwd, we can see that we're in that location. So that's what we might call the reverse and drive method, going back and then going forward. And that's a relative path. So we've looked at a helpful illustration. We've looked at some concrete examples. Now let me give you a simple rule that might help you think about this correctly. An absolute path in Linux always starts with a slash. That is, with the root directory. It starts at the beginning. A relative path does not start with a slash. Now, here's a little surprising twist. Remember the cd ~/downloads? That will take us to the download directory. That might look like a relative path because we're not starting with a slash. We're not explicitly giving the full path, but in reality, that is still an absolute path because tilde is shorthand for /home/sysvin. So in essence, it does sort of start with a slash. And notice this command, cd tilde downloads, will work from anywhere in the system that you're at. So that makes it an absolute path. So remember these simple rules and you'll be fine. Number 1, an absolute path always begins with slash or root. That is not true of relative paths. Number 2, absolute paths will get you there from anywhere in the system, and that is not true of relative paths. A relative path depends on where you currently are. A third thing that we can mention in summary is that you can first put it in reverse and then in drive to get where you're going in one smooth movement. Well, that's it for the absolute versus relative paths. I hope that you have a better understanding of this now. It's not that complicated once you get used to it, and as always, get into your Linux system and play around and practice moving around using both of these kinds of paths. In the next lesson, we'll talk about the letter N for nimble navigation, where we'll learn some tips, tricks, and shortcuts to help us work even more efficiently. See you in the next lesson.